Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire.
And this is Sid Irwin.
And today we are talking about the Prime Directive. And this is something that's not really discussed to the extent we're going to discuss it in typical MINDSHOCK fashion with logic and reason at the forefront. But we are going to discuss a very, very logical explanation for why aliens have not landed on the White House lawn or in the middle of Times Square. And we're going to be using Sid Irwin's vast IQ in excess of the Mensa Society, possibly in the Prometheus Society, which he, of course, refuses to divulge. As always, if you enjoy the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through. If you found this particular podcast mind-shocking and thought-stimulating, hit that like button, share it across social media platforms, of which you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. All right, so before I dive into the Prime Directive and everything that entails, both on a heliocentric globe model and a stationary flat Earth model for the flat Earthers out there, we do have a lot of flat Earth listeners. Some people would find that insulting, but actually we've discussed flat Earth in the past before. It's thought-stimulating at the very least. So what do you think, Sid Irwin? Why do you think one of the arguments against the existence of aliens, and I'll explain this real quick. The flat earthers believe we're on some kind of a basin or lake with the continents in the middle. The outer edge is Antarctica. And if aliens exist, they could come from other ponds or basins or lakes, however you want to describe it, outside beyond the edge of Antarctica, possibly with their own sun systems. And so they would be extraterrestrials coming from the extra terrain, the extra territory outside of Antarctica. Now, and I don't think I need to explain the heliocentric globe model. Maybe I do. I mean, this is MINDSHOCK. But if we're living in some kind of universe that's infinite or near infinite, there would be many, many planets out there, some of which could contain life. Theoretically, if it's infinite, then there would also be infinite planets with life. So one of the arguments against alien intelligences is that they have not announced themselves. And my previous counter-argument to that is, why would an intelligence announce itself any more than you would go out of your way to some random anthill on a mountain and make yourself known to those specific ants?
I mean, well, for one, before I even jump into that, just the fact that you're telling me, like with the flat Earth theory and saying that, extraterrestrials are coming from extra terrain just past Antarctica, that's really weird, because if it's all the same thing, they want to make them terrestrials as well. I mean, it's like saying, you go across, the Atlantic Ocean and say, oh, hey, there's some people here. There's obviously, they're not from here, like, at all. Like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. But, beyond that one, I can agree in the sense where, like, I mean, intelligent, being one aspect of something else. I mean, not to even say, like, aliens in the sense of just being a superior level, like, or a superior level into, like, a human wouldn't come to an ant and be like, hey, what's up, I exist. But it's just the fact that, again, I mean, as probably most intelligent beings would do, is probably take their time, assess, and try to understand the situation around them before just exposing themselves, make sure that there's no threat involved. Obviously taking their own safety, own survival instinct into consideration. I mean, unless, they felt extremely arrogant or no fear whatsoever, or, had some level of intention to, that would make them want to be known and to say, hey, we exist, we're here, obviously feel no threat from you, so we'll expose ourselves, or, again, humans in the past have expressed, not to say as a collective whole, but the majority have expressed, a fear for the unknown.
Very good points, as always, Sid, especially your first point. Yes, on a semantics level, and philosophical level, and even on a practical level, as you pointed out, we would be the extraterrestrials if, not just in a flat Earth model, but if we went to another planet, we would be the extraterrestrials on their planet.
That, so,
So are you kind of like, if we exist, then they exist?
I mean, those who exist, exist. It is what it is. I mean, I'll say this as my friend would put it: you may exist, but you did not exist to me until we interacted. That's how we always treat things. If you want to talk in that kind of philosophical sense. So, in a sense, I leave it to be where something may exist, but unless I've come encounter it, I can't say that it exists to me for sure.
Okay, so now that we've laid the groundwork on extraterrestrials' possible motivations, let's get into the mind shock territory. So here's the problem with that theory, is not necessarily a problem with the theory, but here's where the conspiracy theorists kind of trigger the coincidence theorists. Because if aliens wouldn't make themselves known, that means that they wouldn't be randomly abducting humans. There wouldn't be these UFO incidents. Whether we're talking Rendlesham, whether we're talking Roswell, any of these other many well known incidents in all different countries. So, what does that mean? So, there's a certain camp of coincidence theorists who dismiss all of that and then still allow, not just allow for the possibility, but possibly even legitimately believe there are definitely extraterrestrials out there. They just simply either haven't visited Earth yet, or they've visited but they haven't made themselves known. So for whatever reason, either they're too mentally weak, their cognitive dissonance, their egos, they can't consider the possibility that these UFO incidents that were documented to have occurred actually occurred. So they dismiss it as conspiracy theory nonsense, as they've been indoctrinated by the idiot box to do, while still saying, oh yeah, there's definitely extraterrestrials out there, but they're going to magically pretend they know for sure that these incidents were not real extraterrestrials.
Wow.
Any comments on that?
I mean, it just seems contradictory to say you believe in something, but provided with evidence that might, I guess, boast and boost and work in favor of your belief, and yet deny it. It just seems odd.
Well, that's how cognitive dissonance works, of course. We discuss that quite often on MINDSHOCK.
I guess if anything, yeah, you want to believe. I guess you're obviously clearly still afraid of it actually being true. Because it's just like, yeah, you're believing, in the thought and hope that it's never actually going to happen to actually face that belief.
Well, I think that what triggers a lot of coincidence theorists is their faith-based belief systems that they've been indoctrinated into. They've simultaneously been taught to dismiss any kind of incidents that aren't considered 100% legitimate by the idiot box.
Right.
So there are still all these shows on the Discovery Channel. Are we alone? The Drake equation, the SETI program. So it's like it makes them go along with the kind of, I guess, more of the conformist, like state worshippers who would believe that if those incidents were real, the government would come out and corroborate them. And you know what's funny? We'll be doing a dedicated Roswell podcast, of course, in depth and comprehensive as always. But if you remember, not that you were alive back then, or were you alive during Roswell? How old are you, Sid Irwin?
I like to leave that information undisclosed.
So, yeah, during Roswell, so that was 47, I believe. Is that 47? That was 47, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was 47. And the first day, I believe it was at least the first 24 hours, if not 48 hours, there was no cover-up. Those first headlines basically were saying, UFOs, aliens. Coming from the military. And then when they gauged that first initial response, they immediately changed their story to like hot air balloon secret testing program. And thanks to all the microfiche in the internet, that information is now known that there was no cover up on day one. It began on either day 2 or day 3.
Right.
So it's interesting. So, but of course, the cognitive dissonance coincidence theorists don't pay attention to any kind of history or facts. But anyway,
But I did believe your original question to ask whether it could have occurred, why did it occur, if not, and why would it? I could honestly see it being the case if they were to come and still abduct people and either not leave a trace or make no effort or make efforts to stay as independent as possible. Only due to the fact that I mean it's really close to military tactics of today and times before, where again you might send a group to collect a certain target or get information and do their best to get out without anyone knowing that that incident had occurred. I mean, again, if you're promoting intelligent life outside of ourselves, I mean, could it not be easily possible for them to come with the exact same tactics, if not probably if not honed better? So I'm just saying, is that
well,
possible?
how does anybody rectify the thousands, if not tens of thousands, of UFO sightings? If not hundreds of thousands. I mean, I haven't honestly, I haven't really been keeping up with MUFON and all of the UFO reporting, but there's UFOs reported every single day. Even if you dismiss 99% of UFOs as just people being too stupid to identify an airplane or a hot air balloon or swamp gas. Swamp gas is my favorite. You're definitely going to mistake swamp gas for some kind of metallic object making these bizarre maneuvers in the sky with lights. I mean, that's definitely. I mean, you could really see how it could be swamp gas, right? especially if you live nowhere near a swamp.
Which is hilarious.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite. But and it was easier to dismiss a lot of UFO sightings before everybody had a cell phone. Now you see some of these UFO sightings, the footage is so crisp and clear. I mean, of course, you could argue that it's top secret government technology, but to say that it's swamp gas when you can see clear metallic objects during the daytime, I mean, that's just silliness. I mean, that kind of silliness is just, I don't know how some of these coincidence theorists and government worshipping cultists can defend that.
Indeed, that is a very good question.
All right, so let's get to the mind shock factor, the prime directive itself. Now, this has been mentioned. I haven't really seen it mentioned on in any kind of mainstream arguments. So, what if we're living in some kind of experiment? So, not necessarily a simulated holographic reality. Let's say we're a real physical petri dish.
All right.
So we're in some kind of, so the entire Earth, regardless of whether you believe it's flat or round, it's some kind of system. Even the whole universe itself, let's say it could fit into a box on some alien's desk.
All right.
So, because that's how big the alien is, and who's to say that's not true? Just because the universe is infinite for a human brain's understanding, that's kind of like, the Earth might be infinite for an ant, right?
Right.
So same thing. Either way, what if the purpose of this experiment, if we were intelligently designed and the aliens or whoever's conducting this experiment, they want to see how we develop organically, they would be forbidden to interfere with human affairs.
Again, right there in of itself, by you saying that, it's what I'm already thinking. Like, what does it matter if you're not being interfered with this entire time?
Wait, well, what do you mean?
I mean, if again, by you saying that, it's what I was about to say anyway. I mean, as long as you're not being interfered with by them, then what does it matter? I mean, if you wanted the knowledge and for the sake of knowledge sake, then sure, fine. But I mean, life-wise, like, what would it change for you? I mean, as a person, like, I mean, for some people, it would literally probably mean nothing. It's just like, well, I still have to eat, sleep. I'm a social cells do all these basic functions of life to survive. I mean, some probably wouldn't even have the time to think or care about it. They might literally write it off and say, "Oh, there's a giant entity that's watching over us and doing nothing." Okay,
well,
that's fine with me. That's basically God, right?
Well, here's where it gets interesting because the coincidence theorists point out So then all of the abduction cases, all of the UFO crashes, that's all fake, because if they're forbidden to interfere, that couldn't have happened, right? Okay,
Right.
so two counter arguments there, and this is where we're getting into real mind shock land. One counter argument: if we're a petri dish sitting on some kind of lab tech's desk, why wouldn't the lab tech down the hall want to screw around and play a prank on his fellow lab tech's experiment?
Could easily do that, but again, that's to say if this petri dish, which you mentioned could contain the entire universe, who's to say that again, those extraterrestrials, which again to them would just all be a part of the experiment. We don't know that they also exist. That's aka that's specimen B interacting with us, I guess specimen A. I mean, that could still for us be considered extraterrestrial getting involved, and they're just trying to see, okay, well, clearly they like to interact with specimen A often enough.
Yes, that actually no, that's a good point. It could be part of the experiment could allow for those interactions to monitor them and to monitor how the cognitive dissonant masses react to extreme claims like that, and that could all be part of the experiment as well. I actually hadn't really spent a lot of time on that, but here's where let's say it's a flat Earth model. And the
Right.
extraterrestrials are coming from beyond Antarctica from all these other ponds. If these other ponds or basins, whatever you want to call them, if they're much more advanced, perhaps there's some kind of either written or unwritten rules or laws where you're not really supposed to interfere. Kind of how we have, even as in some of these wildlife preserves or refuges that are technically completely wild, like there are fences set up around a far perimeter, and you have Park Service preventing people, or there are these signs and fences where people can't really get into the wildlife refuge. So the
Right.
wildlife, to them, they might not even think humans exist, other than their brief glimpses of humans on on a perimeter doing some kind of whatever, some kind of work or patrol. So, but 99% of their species, if the preserve, depending on the size of the preserve or refuge, if it's absolutely gigantic, thousands and thousands of miles, that could be similar to what we're on. So, if this is some kind of whatever experiment, and other extraterrestrials per se, they're not supposed to interfere, because our species is supposed to go through the millennia organically without interference. And
Right.
here's the real mind shock aspect of the whole thing that I want to discuss. Who's to say that these advanced civilizations, or the keepers of the experiment, if it's a big team, who's to say there aren't troublemakers or renegades among them that would want to screw around? They would want to zip their UFO around, and sometimes maybe they might crash. They get a little too crazy with the pilot.
It's perfectly possible. I mean, again, if we talk about intelligent life, and we're assuming that they might have similarities to us in that sense, that thought process, then yeah, undoubtedly, because there's people among us who would do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a teenager taking his dad's Porsche for a spin without permission.
I think sometimes I wonder if the real fear, I've had that thought too, it's not because it's the extraterrestrial life being out there, but rather something capable of manipulating our own lives with such ease.
Yeah, and how often do those little joyrides end up in accidents? A certain percentage of the time. Are those the UFO crashes that we saw? So,
Very low.
so the prime directive would basically be to allow humans to develop without interference. And who's to say that these other intelligences have a 100% obedience rate? Why would they? So there would be those that did not observe the prime directive. There would be those that want to do their own thing, and they don't want to be told what to do by others. Why would that be different for other species or extraterrestrials?
It's a very good question.
And I think, does that account for everything? Because if there is some kind of prime directive in place, that means they would never, I mean, even with law violations, even the renegades and the rebels, they're not going to, usually it's not an outright defiance. They're not going to go land in the middle of Times Square, because there's no way to explain that away.
That is true, unless again even though let's say the renegades, just who's to say this isn't actually part of the experiment to see how they deal with sudden change, sudden uh, shock value, uncertainties thrown into the mix. How will they respond each time as time goes on? Okay, we threw in UFOs before. They were not as intelligent, very scared, very superstitious. All of them believed something crazy or black magical or something was going on. Let's wait a couple of centuries. Oh, let's do this again. Let's see what happens. Oh, they're okay. They're responding a bit better. Interesting, interesting. A little more calmer. Yes, there's still some of those who are either skeptical or superstitious, but still a bit more under control. Let's try again another century and see what happens.
That actually makes a lot of sense because you have, yeah, in medieval times or however many years ago, they did have those huge UFO sightings that were mass reported. So that is an interesting.
Just to say that as much as there could be theories to deny it, disprove it, or even agree with it, there's just plenty of them that could exist to and just various other concepts that could occur.
Yep, and I'm gonna go into the final mind shock here, which is this is a crazy one. Who's to say that aliens haven't already made themselves known en masse, possibly many times?
Very well could.
Because, and let me explain that. Now, if I told you, what if aliens landed on the White House lawn and in Times Square a month ago and it was televised live on the news? What would you respond if I told you that actually happened?
It's very intriguing. I would like to see this information in video footage.
What if I told you you watched it live unfold like everybody else?
And I like to say, what did I miss?
Now, I'm not talking early onset Alzheimer's. I'm talking if aliens had the technology. Now, again, regardless of which model you believe in, I guess if you believe in the heliocentric globe and the infinite universe, their technology would probably have to be more advanced to travel those vast distances, unless they're traveling through wormholes. But even then, they'd still have to have very advanced technology. So, if they possess that level of technology, is it really unbelievable that they would possess some kind of mass memory wipe technology like in Men in Black?
I mean, I think about Men in Black quite a bit for it throwing out all these theories that may have been already pre-existent, such as again the future disc theory, because I think at the end of one of the movies they zoomed out and showed the entire universe on a petri dish for other aliens to.
Yeah, believe it or not, I actually have not seen that movie.
Wow, you really should watch it. They throw in quite a few interesting theories that ones that you have mentioned. So I imagine it probably might have been around for a while. If not
Well,
introduced any
one of the reasons I haven't watched it is because it's obvious propaganda to show to kind of divert attention away from the real Men in Black.
aha,
Because if you remember when that movie first came out, there was a huge uptick in UFO reports, mostly because as we were going into the late '90s, the internet was starting to become more prominent.
right.
So people were sharing more UFO accounts, Men in Black accounts. So it really looked like some kind of Hollywood, government Hollywood propaganda damage control to try to get people to look at it in a non-serious fashion.
Uh, see, I find that interesting. I could see it that way. I personally can't lie, looked at it as not in a sense of not non-serious, but rather just like, huh. I mean, could they really be among us like that? That would probably make me even more paranoid. Because not every person got a happy ending, undoubtedly. I
But,
mean, yeah, you gotta admit that the farmer literally was eaten from the not inside out, but basically all of his flesh, blood, marrow sucked right out of him. Didn't sound like it was very nice. And then the thing was his skin. It was that's a terrible way to go, I
indeed. But going back to what I was saying before, would the extraterrestrials possess the technology required to wipe everybody's memory of the event of their landing on the White House lawn or Times Square? And would they be able to delete and or manipulate and or replace all of the footage and news broadcasting with other things? And if that was wiped from everybody's memory, nobody would know any better. How mind shocking is that theory for you?
Really pretty interesting theory. I could work with that. I mean, I imagine it's probably done more as a them doing it as a test just to see if they were capable of it. Anything else?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense with all the with various tests and responses, and then if the test didn't go the way they want, they would have to start the world all over again. It seems like it'd be a lot easier just to memory wipe and just delete the news for the day and replace it.
I mean, yeah.
So the counter argument by the coincidence theorists, the those that don't have the mental strength to consider this theory as true, their counter argument is, of course, that's too unbelievable. That technology could not exist. But what's the basis for that statement? Because if they could travel near infinite light years through wormholes or whatever, if they're our civilization is however many years old, if you argue that the extraterrestrial civilization is billions or trillions of years old, how is it really? I mean, why would you appeal to incredulity, use that logical fallacy to say that it's too unbelievable that they would have that kind of technology? I mean, that technology would be probably the greatest weapon. I mean, it would be greater than actual tools of destruction because you could literally just bend reality to your will.
That is a terrifying thing.
Indeed, some people believe that technology already exists, regardless of whether there's aliens or not, and the Mandela effect is the result of such technology being used. And
That's to say that.
of course, we do have our Mandela effect podcast coming up, but this was the prime directive. And if there was a prime directive in place where there's not really supposed to be interference, it seems perfectly plausible that there would be these isolated incidents about either procedure not being followed or tests, specific approved tests to violate the prime directive, so to speak, but to gain information as a result.
It should be fair and possible.
Any final thoughts on the subject, Sid?
Um, I mean, personally, not much to say. It's just that I would like to hope that some people would, if they're listening to this, obviously interested, that they do keep an open mind to the concept, and I guess in a sense potentially enjoy it, or it might help them just in case if in their lifespan things may occur that might be highly shocking, that it might take a bit of the edge off the shock. So yeah,
Take the edge off the mind shock?
yes, take the edge off the mind shock.
All right, so that's what you had to say personally. What about impersonally?
Uh, I mean, again, all very solid theories, all very interesting concepts. I mean, legitimately, and I imagine there's plenty of people who have thought about it. People have written things about it, made movies about it, stuff like that. I usually look at those kinds of media as I won't say cautionary tales, but rather just again that some other people in a sense to kind of share. Other people have thought about it. No matter how it's been displayed, it's the idea and concept. Like one such book where I won't divulge the name of it in case anyone who may be interested in finding out. I think the planet they had known that there were apparently aliens that came in and attacked them. Right? It had they beat them in the end, but still were causing irreparable damage to the planet. In the end, though, even though they believed that they were obviously the good guys, this is their planet, they lived here. Come to find out that they are actually the aliens who had came and ravaged the land and now currently rule it. So yeah, we can say right now we ourselves aren't the aliens that might have came to this planet, ravaged it, and now rule it. Yes, they're going to do the same later. Or might be people who were originally here before us and are in hiding. because they're recognizing that there might be a threat and they want to be careful.
Oh, you're going into the Hollow Earth theory.
I'm just saying, hollow Earth or even suborbital, you know, who knows? It may have some interesting camouflage hiding amongst us. Or, again, like they talked about with the shapeshifter factor, it could be blending in, hiding in plain sight. Who knows?
Very good points. I will close this out with this last point. Can you imagine the egotism involved for humans to say, if aliens are real, they would have made themselves known by now? as if as if a higher intelligence has nothing better to do than indulge the ego, the egotistical whims of a species such as ours.
I have no idea.
I mean, I always thought that was kind of funny.
It is funny, undoubtedly, because, like I said before, I mean, again, even like I said, military tactics in of itself, plenty of times people will be there, observing, watching, taking in information, data, collecting, all that stuff, unbeknownst to a person. And mind you, will not ever make that expressly clear to them. Probably not to the very last moment when they find them no longer a threat and no longer of use. And even then, that's if you're lucky.
Yeah, so as usual, always much to ponder on the MindShock podcast. Hope you enjoyed another edition of the MindShock podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. You can also check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. And you can also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
Consider a win.
We'll catch you guys next time.